Hello again, everybody. Tom O'Saban from the University of Illinois Tax School, coming to you from my office at the mothership in Urbana-Champaign, Illinois, with this week's blog. I think all of you would agree with me that the issue of dependency is one that's very basic to all of our tax preparation duties, isn't it? What I'm going to do is take you actually to a scenario where I say the age-old rules of dependency meet application against new tax laws. We're going to take you to a video scenario from our ethics section in just a little bit, and then I have a challenge for you. After you've had a chance to watch the video, we want you to go ahead and comment. We want to know how you would handle the situation that's presented to you. And for participating, we're going to put everybody's name into a hat, and you could have a chance to win a priceless University of Illinois Tax School insulated Yeti thermos just for participating. Stay tuned. We'll take you to the scenario, and then we'd like to have your comments after.
So let's go into scenario one. We got Brad and Kelly. I got to put my cheaters on here, and we'll start on this. We're on page 205. Okay, so the CARES Act provided recovery rebates or economic impact payments. Remember those? Certainly haven't forgotten them yet, have you? When the first round went out, they were done in 2020, but they were based on 2019 returns. They were $1,200 for each adult on the return, $2,400 taxpayers filing jointly, $500 for each qualifying child under the age of 17. I'm reading to you from the scenario, and then I'm giving you the footnotes as to where this came from the CARES Act. So we're here at Brad and Kelly. They're a married couple who file a joint return. They've got 3 daughters, ages 21, 19, and 7. Prior to 2020, Brad and Kelly always claimed their daughters as dependents. When that first round of EIP payments went out, they received $2,900. Which was $1,200 for the adults, for Brad and Kelly, they're the parents, and $500 for their 7-year-old daughter. Remember with that, the 21-year-old and the 19-year-old, they were too old to get those $500 payments, the EIP payments. By the way, I don't want to turn this into a new developments course, but when we talk about EIP, economic impact payments, those were the advance checks that were sent out. When you reconcile those EIP payments on a tax return, those are recovery rebate payments. There's the difference between the two, okay? All right, so let's see what happens here. So they got their $2,900. No payments were sent out, as I just mentioned, to the 21-year-old and the 19-year-old because they weren't qualifying children for the purpose of economic impact payments, okay? All right, Brad and Kelly contact Rita Cook, an enrolled agent. All of us here are Rita Cook, to prepare their 2020 returns. They explained to Rita that they heard, and I bet you this is hitting a nail on the head for all of you, isn't it? They heard the EIP was an advance on the 2020 return. They wondered how about if we don't claim the 2 oldest daughters, let them file on their own, and they could get their own $1,200 recovery rebates when they file their 2020 returns, because they didn't get an EIP. Could they get a recovery rebate? I bet you had this question 50 times when you were preparing 2020 returns, didn't you? I did. So let's see what happens. So, okay, what does Rita say? Rita says, that's a pretty good idea, especially given that the daughters, they earned a few $100s working as lifeguards the previous summer, and they could file their own returns. Besides, the practitioner says, if you don't claim them, they certainly should be able to claim themselves. I'm going to let that sit with you for a minute as I grab a little sip here. And I bet you're all going, Remember what I asked you to write down at the beginning of the scenario. New provisions run into age-old provisions. What are some of the issues in this scenario, if you think about it? Is it true that if they don't claim themselves, or if we don't claim them as parents, they certainly should be able to claim themselves? Does that mean that not claiming a dependent makes that dependent independent? I think you'll know from very, very early training in the tax world, that's not true. That we have to ask some probing questions and make some determination based on the facts and circumstances, and not just the fact that they're not claiming them. I mean, do you think they're independent, making a few $100s? Or is it enough? Has Rita done good due diligence? Does she have diligence as to accuracy? Or do we potentially have an issue where she's, I don't want to go to the level of aiding and abetting a false tax return, but it isn't a good situation, I think, to just say, well, if you don't claim them, they certainly ought to be able to claim themselves. So I think we understand the old law there would be any time we have, and forget about EIP or recovery rebate payments. How often have we had the circumstance where, at least in my area, I can expand this thought process a little bit, where for those of you who don't know me that well, I was born and raised on the Illinois side of St. Louis. So a lot of people that I represent will send their children to Missouri colleges, University of Missouri, St. Louis University, Washington University, Truman State. Shout out to the Bulldogs, where Gina went, and also my daughter are products of Truman State in Kirksville, Missouri. And what they'll try to do is they'll try to establish in-state residency for their children by, similar to this situation, not claiming them. And I've had to have that conversation with them, with the client, saying, listen, it's not just a circumstance, and we got another polling question popping up here. Again, take your choices between A and D. Make your choice, press submit. It's not just a circumstance of not claiming them makes them independent. And I've had to educate clients about that very circumstance by saying, listen, it's not enough. We have to ask more probing questions. And I think you would agree with it, that on its face, scenario one, Rita has not done a good job. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I don't like to use always, never, or closed-ended kind of conclusions, but nonetheless, this is not enough of a conclusion to have the older daughters claim themselves just by the fact that the parents said, hey, maybe we can get them those $1,200 rebates, recovery rebates. When we talk about committing any possible Circular 230 violations, I think we have issues as to competency. I think we have issues as to diligence, as to accuracy, in my opinion. You might have some others to consider as well. Remember what I asked you to do at the beginning. Think broadly that, yes, you might have some other considerations, but it doesn't mean that there's only one way to go in this scenario.